So I've been reading Erwin Lutzer's book lately on, we shall not be silent, something along those lines, and he basically is talking about the culture and where we're going with these things, and he tries to approach a lot of questions. So our foundations are being destroyed, and he's like, so what do we do? What can we do? What are we supposed to do? And he, of course, refers to this verse in Psalm chapter 11. At one point in the book, he starts referring to this verse that we've all heard very often. It says, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? And personally, I've heard this verse preached before when people look at it as if, well, the foundation's destroyed, now the righteous, we cannot do anything. And what do we do? And there's, some school of thought that people will say that there's literally nothing we can do. And he approaches this. So one of the questions that I don't believe it's him, but somebody else I was reading recently is talking about the foundations. And this is the illustration they give. How much dynamite will it take to blow up a dam? And here's the answer. Depends on where you put it. Now, if you take a little bit of dynamite and put it, just on the side or the top, you're probably not going to destroy the whole dam. But if you put it toward the bottom and just a little bit of water can get through and it starts to erupt the whole thing, and it will be destroyed. We had something similar here at the house we live in Mount Airy now, is that when we went to buy it, there was a crack in the foundation. I think it probably scared a lot of people away, probably helped us get a better deal on the house. And we've had it fixed. We had helical piers put in through Carolina Foundation. I believe all that's taken care of. They put their stamp of approval on it. But the foundations, how important are they? What are they saying? Here is David is writing this psalm, or singing this psalm, whatever they did with it, in Psalms chapter 11. He's not saying that the righteous cannot do anything, but he's stressing that we need a right view of God. We need a right view of what's going on here. As we read, it started out in verse number 1. We'll just quickly go through this. It says, in the Lord I take refuge. How can you say to my soul, flee like a bird to your mountain? It's as if he's saying that his friends are literally telling him, you need to flee. You need to get away. Now, that's what it sounds like, in a sense, what's going on here. And there are times in David's life that we see that he does flee, that he does run away. Saul, if my memory serves me correctly, Saul tried to kill David something like 21 times, as you read through Samuel. And Samuel, or David, literally fled from Saul. At one point, he's literally living with the Philistines, his enemies. He stays there. He has to fake sickness to get in with them, and then he's there. He runs. So there's times David, I think, understands that you have to use some discernment on when you're going to stand, when you're going to run, what you're going to do. But in this place, he's saying, his friends are saying to flee like a bird. And it says, for behold, the wicked bend the bow. They have fitted their arrow to the string to shoot in the dark at the upright in heart. I think this is not metaphorical. It's not symbolic. He's literally saying people were trying to kill him. They are trying to shoot at him with a bow. David went through this time and time again, through Saul and his forces, and David and where he was at, the jealousy basically that was there, all that went through that. And then he says this, if the foundations are destroyed, what can the righteous do? Do they quit? Do they become bitter? Do they run away? Now, for us, we look at this as almost as a rhetorical question. Now, our foundations obviously are being destroyed. We see this so much with, I think of marriage, I think of abortion, I think of these things that were foundational really in the beliefs of America and that are now being torn down. Does that mean we give up? Does that mean we quit? Do we become bitter? And here's the thing that I believe David's trying to say. And listen, there are Christians all across the world that have lived in places where these things are going on for years, and they have never had the freedom we have. They've never had this. So for them, for someone in the Middle East who just lost half their family last week in a bombing because they were Christians, this is not a rhetorical question. And they're not thinking, if these are destroyed, this is not something that they're wondering about like we do. And they don't think, well, I have to run for the hills. They stay there. And the ministry stays the same. It should stay the same for us. It's not about the big ministry, although I love lots of people in the ministry, would thinking that the church that I'm helping with right now, I would love to think that we'd reach more and more people, that our ministry would progress, that it would continue moving forward. But if not, we continue to hold to the truth. We continue to do what God said and minister to one another. As Jesus said, to love your neighbors yourself, love the Lord your God with all your heart. That is the ministry. And whether church is canceled in the next year or so and you can never go again, the ministry stays the same. Now, I don't see that happening in America, not in a near future. I mean, at some point it may. I hope not. But what we have to do is what Luther says in his book. It's not about going back to where we were. It's about strengthening what remains. And that's what Jesus told the church in Sardis: strengthen what remains. And that's what we need to do, and that's where we need to stand right now. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? And here's what he says in the next verse. Verse 4 says, the Lord is in his holy temple. So God is still on the throne. He's still where he's always been. He says to return, when the foundation is destroyed, return to the first principles. Return to the principle that God is still on the throne. And that's where he's at. I'm reminded of Isaiah chapter 6, when Isaiah has this vision and he says King Uzziah had died. Now, King Uzziah had been king for like 50-some years. Isaiah had never known another king than Uzziah. And when he dies, things are about to change. But this is what Uzziah sees. The Lord was on his throne, high and lifted up. He's always been there. He'll always be there. And if the foundations are destroyed, the Lord is still in his holy temple. One person put it this way, or actually several people put it this way. Just 1:1 says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's not a question. It's a statement of truth. It's a declaration. God created the heavens and the earth. Now, if we believe that, the rest of it is easy. The rest of it falls into place. If he created it all, then he's in control of it all. It goes all the way back to the beginning, goes all the way to the end, and he is still in control. I like how John Lennox answered the question. I heard somebody say, do you really believe that Jesus turned the water into wine? You believe that that's really what happened? He said, if you believe that he created the water in the first place, why would turning it into wine be a big deal? And it's absolutely the truth. It's not. It's not a big deal for him. He says, the Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes see, his eyelids test the children of man. And he goes on to say, basically, no one's getting away with this. The ones that have destroyed the foundation, they're not going to get away with it. He said, the Lord tests the righteous, but his soul hates the wicked and the one who loves violence. He says he hates them. Let him rain coals on the wicked. Fire and sulfur and scorching. Wind shall be the portion of their cup. Now, that sounds pretty strict. It's a pretty abrupt statement that he literally prays the let coals rain on the wicked, basically to kill them. This is what he's saying here. And then in verse 7 says, for the Lord is righteous, he loves righteous deeds. The upright shall behold his face. So when the foundations are being destroyed, we have to return to the first principles, that the Lord is still on his throne, and understand that the righteous will see his face. And that's what it's about. That we believe that God so loved us that he created someone who would pay our debt, because we're all sinners. And because of that, we will see him one day. And he is on his throne. He's always been on his throne. And everything in between is not really something we have control over. We can influence, but what we need to do, how we can best influence, is the one that's in front of you. Every day, influence the one that's in front of you. Minister to the one that's in front of you, that's around you. To love your neighbor as yourself. That is the ministry, and that's everyone's ministry. And he said, we shall behold him. The great reformer Martin Luther said it this way: here I stand, I can do no other. Now, we have to understand what we need to stand on, and that is the truth. Some traditions I have no problem with not doing. I mean, there's traditions I like. Even in church, there's traditions I like. But understand, we don't separate over people because they don't have the same traditions we do. As long as they believe the truth, that's what's important. And the truth is what's important to us. It's the truth. I talked about marriage. I talked about abortion. What is the truth about those things? That is what we stand on. And no matter what what culture, no matter what political movement says that you are wrong, you have the truth on your side, and that is where you stand. That is where you remain faithful. And even if those foundations are destroyed, the Lord is still in his holy temple, and the upright shall behold his face. And that is all we need to know. Listen, I get concerned, I worry, I understand all these things are happening, but God is on his throne. And that is the truth. And that is where we stand. Until next time.